Let's welcome in our morning guest. Shrikant Shetty is now joining us. Samit Chavan is with us, and Vijay Chopra will also be with us quite shortly. Shrikant, let's start with you. What are the calls?
From a trading perspective, you can call on X side where stock is looking positive for a target about 230. So we are with a stop loss of 209. That's a trade. From investment point of view, I think some of the results which have come out are pretty good. Where NMDC, given the iron ore prices move, we think that's looking positive for a target about 175, 180. So that's from investment perspective. NMDC looks good among the metal pack. So these are a couple of calls which we have.
Samit, what are your calls?
We have 3 long recommendations and 1 would be on the short side. For Axis Bank would be a preferred pick from the private banking space. Clearly, it has already formed a strong base around 440, 450 and is now moving higher. 480 has been acting as a very strong support since last couple of weeks. So we expect the stock to move towards 532 over the next few weeks. Stop loss would be around 478. Second buy would be on Motherson Sumi, which has already confirmed a good price volume breakout from a condition zone around 345 last week. Yesterday we saw a dip in this particular stock, but we would interpret this as a good buying opportunity. Our target would be around 376, stop loss 333. Our third buy would be on Petronet LNG. If you look at the daily weekly chart, all charts are quite positive. The chart structure is quite encouraging. We expect the stock to move towards 415, which is our near-term target. Stop loss would be around 366. And a solitary sell call would be on India Cements. After seeing a strong rally from the lower levels of 105 in nearly 1.5 months, the stock is clearly struggling around 160, 165 mark. Yesterday we saw first sign of weakness. The stock has managed to close below 5-day moving averages. Thus, we expect some profit booking in the stock. Target would be around 150, 148 and stop loss would be around 164.5.
Right. In terms of some of the stocks that will react to news flow, let's look at DLF. So they have a board meet today, and today what we can pick up from reports is that the much awaited deal regarding their cyber city developer should actually come in today. So GIC has entered into an exclusive negotiation with the DLF promoters. That's what reports are suggesting. Agreement will be, of course, the previous one that they had slated, which is to sell 40% stake in DCC. DCCDL stands for DLF Cyber City Developers Limited. They own a portfolio of assets and they give it for rents. However, the rental arm is expected to be seen at a valuation of around 40,000 crores. So 25% stake sale, which means around 10,000 crores will come into the promoters. Promoters are likely to infuse these funds back into the company as per the reports, and a portion of debt would be retired by these funds. DLF has a board meet today, and this is likely to come in post this particular news report. Just also in the board meet, results would be declared. So let's just look at the results as well. Sales numbers, 1,917 crores for the sales numbers. PAT numbers expected at 153 crore. Not that great growth. In fact, there is a big decline of about 30%. EBITDA is expected around 928 crores versus about 1,225. Demonetization is likely to have an impact on DLF. Remember, they are into the slightly higher end of selling products rather than affordable housing, and that's why you could see a higher impact. EBITDA margins expected at 38%. Sales trend within their 2 key property, Crest and Camilla, is something which is likely to be strong, or which is likely to drive the numbers. That is something which will be watched out for. Numbers mostly should come out post-market.
Well, there are a few other stocks that are in the news today, and we'll be watching them on how they trade. There are a few stocks going ex-dividend. BHEL giving a dividend of 80 paise a share, MRF giving a dividend of 3 rupees a share, and Redington giving a dividend of 2 rupees a share. Then Idea is in focus. Their earnings came out for the third quarter very, very weak, but there's still some buzz around the stock regarding the sale of its towers. Idea has said that it's open to monetizing its own towers or the stake that it has in Indus Towers. Now, Idea owns 100% of its 11,000 captive towers. So 11,000 captive towers, and Idea also has 11% stake in Indus Towers. Earlier, there were reports that American Tower Corporation was looking to buy Idea's towers. So Idea is going to be in focus. Then Hindalco came out with a stable set of third quarter earnings, and the management has said that aluminium demand is expected to grow around 4%. They are saying that the government's focus on housing and infrastructure will boost demand, but there is uncertainty in the US because the policies are at this point in time not clear, and they may impact growth. Also, there is concern about Brexit because that too may impact growth. They have made debt prepayments to the tune of 342 crore rupees. So that's positive for Hindalco. Britannia too came out with the third quarter earnings, and reading the fine print, one can say that the underlying volume growth for Britannia is about 2% in the third quarter, and this is the kind of volume growth that Britannia has done is the highest amongst staples, and they've gained volume share from local competition. So Britannia should benefit from the strong showing of the third quarter. Then we have Ruchi Soya. This was a buzz that was being spoken about, but now confirmation coming through. Ruchi Soya has signed an agreement with Patanjali. The pact is for refining and packaging edible oils. Edible oils will be sold under the Patanjali brand, and Ruchi Soya is going to be supplying the oils. Good news coming in for Ruchi Soya.
Right, Anisha. Ruchi Soya, when this news came in yesterday, just within closing hours, was up 20%. So let's see what is the sort of follow-up move that it sees today. HPCL declared the numbers, and numbers are looking great on a YOY basis, but the numbers were below estimates, or one can say that it could be slightly better than what they have delivered. Sales numbers on your screen, 48,555 crores. Profit numbers, 1,590 crores. That's a growth of around 52%. The profits number did not disappoint the street because there was a lot of inventory gain. But if you look at the internal data, it was slightly lower. That's the EBITDA number for you, 2,800, broadly in line with a very small marginal bias on the negative side. But if you look at, some of the sort of volume data. So you'll see refining volumes grew by 2%, sales volume grew by 7%, and GRMs was declined by around 19%. Now, it was expected to decline, but the magnitude of decline was slightly on the higher side. And that's why, you can say that the core numbers were on the weaker side. Some of the brokerages like CLSA has come ahead and downgraded the stock. However, this is the pre-open session at the bottom of your screen, which is indicating a 2 rupee higher start.
Then, of course, we have Petronet LNG that came out with third quarter earnings that met the street's expectations. Sales were higher at 5,976 crore rupees. Profit after tax nearly doubling at 397 crore rupees that were benefited by a lower tax rate. Even EBITDA doubled at 607 crore rupees versus 315 crore rupees when compared on a year-on-year period. LNG volumes were up 34% and at 191.4 TBTUs. The H terminal utilization was as high as 98%, and the tax rate for the quarter was much lower at 22%, which really benefited the bottom line.
Right. Petronet also, volumes were good, and that's why the street is expecting a positive number on the Petronet side. NMDC numbers on your screen. It was a miss as far as numbers are concerned. So profits grew by 41%, but don't forget, some of these prices for underlying assets, underlying commodities have increased so much that even the 41% number on a growth basis is looking on the miss side. EBITDA number came in at 1,026 crores versus 325 crores. EBIT came in at about 971 odd crores. Overall, the numbers were great on a YOY basis, but again, street was expecting much more. Remember, some of the prices of underlying commodities, what NMDC makes and some of the other commodity players makes, have actually been much higher in terms of growth rate. That's the PAT number for you. Credit versus Credit Suisse estimates, it was down 40%. EBITDA was down about 21 odd percent, and sales volumes were down about 4%. That essentially led to the miss. However, overall, the numbers are not that bad. Let's see how NMDC opens in the next 5 minutes.
All right, Shrikant, what do you make of the numbers posted by HPCL? Oil marketing companies, for HPCL, it's a miss. And there are worries about crude oil price now firming up, though they have the freedom to pass on the price hikes. Do you think this stock could correct? Because it's near its 52-week highs, and it really isn't showing any signs of correction.
Yeah, I think the stock could correct because we've seen a strong rally in this entire OMC space. So clearly, if there is some moment of disappointment in the space in terms of earnings, there could be corrections. There's no denying that. But we do like this space from a longer-term perspective. Our preferred pick probably would be BPCL and IOC, given the valuation, where valuation upside, we still think there is some amount of valuation upside there. In HPCL, we are seeing just about 6-7% upside from these levels, from what we have investment target. So I think there can be some correction in HPCL.
Samit, what's your view on NBCC? It's around 280 rupees. These are multi-month resistance levels where it's trading at this point of time. Do you think it can, are there signs on the charts that it can take out 285 convincingly? If yes, where do you think the stock could head? Okay, so I think we have a little technical difficulty, but let's ask Shrikant. Okay, Samit, I was asking you about NBCC. What do you see on the charts for NBCC? What levels are you watching?
See, clearly, trend-wise, it's been maintaining its height of higher bottom formation. Thus, it's been maintaining its uptrend since last many months. The stock is looking at its all-time high. Looking at the volume activity, the possibility is quite higher now. The stock is likely to surpass its all-time high, and the breakout point would be somewhere around 290, 295 on a closing basis. If that happens, then yes, this stock has a potential to move towards 315, 318, which would be the next extension level for this particular stock. On the low side, if we see 260, 265 has been acting as a very strong support. So we would interpret any dip toward this important support level would be a good buying opportunity. And sooner or later, this stock is likely to head higher, and it is likely to give a decisive breakout beyond 290, 292.
Right. Shrikant, even real estate company DLF has had a remarkable run. It reached levels of about 100 at the end of December, and since then it's now come up to 150 rupees. Pankaj spoke about the likely news development about the leasing assets and the talks with GIC. They have a lot of assets that they can monetize. How do you view DLF? Do you think it can go up higher, or would you still be cautious given the sales outlook is not very clear?
See, from a pure business point of view, I think the outlook remains quite patchy. We are not sure how the business is going to pan out. But yes, this deal was something which is around the corner for quite some time. It's been on the radar, and the management has been talking about it. I think the media has spoken about it. So it's a well-known thing that this deal will happen. Of course, it got delayed in terms of the announcements. If it does happen, I think it will be positive, because debt remains a major concern for most of these real estate companies. And for DLF, money, though it will be deal with the promoters, and if the money does come into DLF, then I think it will be a positive for DLF. So clearly, because debt remains a major concern, we all know that the business in real estate currently is in a slowdown phase. So not much is expected from the numbers front. But if there is steps taken to reduce the debt, I think that will be seen positively. So there will be valuation-related upsides coming on account of that.
Right. Just a point about, as you said, the business remains patchy and they are into slightly higher end in terms of sales. Debt reduction, that in that terms would mean positive, because companies on real estate don't really trade on sales and PAT. They trade on the asset value that they have.
Right, exactly. So if you see that the debt gets reduced, and so clearly the NAV, there is scope for NAV improvement on account of that, and the market perception also improves. So it's more a game of market perception and the sentiment getting improved on account of it, and the steps being taken by the management to reduce the debt, which obviously gives you a slightly positive feeler from a longer term perspective. So that will be positive.
Right. Just about a few seconds remaining away from markets to open. We should start getting the first prices anytime soon. A lot of stocks, including DLF, which declares numbers today, but some reports regarding DEAL, HPCL, all of them will be in focus. These are first trades for you on your screen. SBI is up slightly positive. Bank of Baroda is up about 1 to 2 rupees. Hindalco is up around 1%. Hindalco declared numbers yesterday. Infosys is down 1%, 10 rupees. There was a big press conference yesterday. Tata Motors down about a rupee. Numbers come out today. Idea Cellular absolutely flat at this moment. ONGC up around 0.23%. ITC 270, no major change. Adani Port declares numbers today. Reliance is up around 1 rupee or so. That's DLF for you, 0.80 paisa, higher, up about 0.5%, 148. Let's look at Idea as well. They had a con call yesterday. We cut to the con call briefly, but further details came in post market hours. It's absolutely flat right now. Hindalco is reacting to numbers. They had a con call post market hours. Not that positive in terms of con calls, but one would say that overall things were looking decent after the numbers for Hindalco. Britannia, details regarding volume growth, various other things came in post market hours, but no major movement. It went up 1.5% after results came out, but post that nothing much. Ruchi Soya is today down about 2%. It was up 20% yesterday. Remember, yesterday, just within closing hours, they declared that they are doing a deal with Patanjali, a well-known brand. It's down about 2% or so. That's HPCL for your screen, down about 2.8%, 562. Numbers were not that great, down about 2.7%. Petronet numbers, on the other hand, were good, but it's absolutely flat. It's clearly no change as far as Petronet is concerned. NMDC will also declare will also react to its numbers, 0.3% higher. Numbers were lower than estimates, but I don't think that the street is focusing in on that, 0.2% higher. Dishman Pharma numbers were not that great, down about 1.6, 1.7%, so not much that one can read into this at this point of time. Infibeam's reacting to numbers, 6,000 shares traded. They posted a profit on a YOY basis versus a very small profit, so that's a good number. BEML was in focus yesterday, but today it's up around 3 rupees. Again, it's a results impact. Results came out post-market hours. Prestige Estate numbers were not that great, and that's clearly reflected in the price as well. 4.5% decline, 160, 168, 169. Reliance Infra on your screen, about 2% lower, 526. About 1 lakh shares traded for Reliance Infra. Repco Home Finance, 5% decline. So numbers were actually not that bad, but I'll just recheck if there is any concern regarding asset quality or what the street was expecting. So that's down about 5%. That's a big mover. And generally on numbers, you don't see Repco Home Finance reacting in such a way. Nalco up around 2%, 67.7. Again, this is a results reaction. Numbers were not that good, as well as at the same time, they were not that bad. Anisha, any other names that you can pick up?
Well, on high volumes, we are seeing GVK Power and Infrastructure up 13.5%. So that stock is seeing more than 7 million shares exchanged in the first 5 minutes of trade. It's only at 7.5 rupees, but it's still up 13%. We have SJVN, which is up 4%. SJVN is trading at a 52-week high. Hindalco is also moved up well. And some of the other alternate energy names like Ujas Energy also moving up well on high volumes, up nearly 1%. We have on the losing end, stocks like Pratibha Industries down 8.5%. Lanco Infratech is down 4%. We got GMR down 4%. Ruchi Soya is now seeing some profit taking. It opened in the green and has very quickly slipped into the red with a cut of about 2.5%. Reliance Infrastructure is also down 2%. And HPCL on its earnings is down 2%. So we are seeing those reactions coming in. Shrikant, what do you make of the earnings posted by Hindalco? They were pretty stable. Do you think from here on the outlook for some of the commodity makers is better? Today we've got China's producer prices coming in and they're at 6-year highs. And iron ore has seen such a huge rally, and you can have rub-offs on other metal prices pretty soon. How would you approach Hindalco now?
So we have been pretty positive on Hindalco for some time now and continue to remain positive there from investment point of view. Of course, as you rightly said, a lot of rally has happened in metal space, so there could be some amount of profit taking coming through at some point of time. But overall, the trends remain pretty positive for metals, and we think there is more upsides in Hindalco. I think the term will also be decided on the QIP, which was reported. The company is planning a QIP, so maybe that will keep the stock range bound till we have more clarity on that. But overall, we remain positive on the stock.
Samit, have you had a look at the chart of Tata Motors? Tata Motors has really corrected quite a bit over the last few days and has not really rallied as along with the markets in the most recent burst on the upside. Today it's even slipped below 500 rupees a share. Do you think this is routine profit taking, or is there something going wrong? Do you see lower levels for Tata Motors?
No, if we look at the overall chart structure from early part of December till end of Jan, the stock has already given a decent rally from the levels of 435, 440 and moved towards 550. So in the correction in the recent past, we would rather interpret this as a correction or profit booking of the entire rally what we saw from the levels of 430, 440. And to be honest, we are quite optimistic on the stock. 490 to 500 seems to be a very strong support. So those who want to get into this particular stock with slightly near to medium term perspective, then 495, 490 seems to be a very strong support, and that can be interpreted as a very good buying opportunity. Going forward, we expect this stock to resume its higher degree uptrend, wherein the first level would be on the upside, would be around 540, 545. And if we consider another 2.5 months time frame, then we expect this stock to surpass even 550 and move towards 575 to 580, which would be a medium term target on this stock.
Right. Repco Home Finance is down about 4%, and as we told you, the numbers were declared. I think disbursement growth slowed, as well as there was a slight bit of uptick in the gross NPA. Shrikant, you've been tracking housing finance companies and especially small names like Group Finance, Repco Home Finance. So Repco, not that great in terms of numbers. It would weigh on the stock?
Yeah, I think temporarily. I think the overall sector looks pretty positive. So I think last quarter was anyway a difficult quarter in terms of because this the
last
lending.
You mean Q3, Q2?
Q3. I mean, this is the Q3 number which you're talking about, where the demonetization happened. So there could be some question mark on the disbursements clearly, and especially the segment in which Repco Home is. They try to cater to a segment which the normal NBFCs don't cater to. So I think that there is going to be some amount of incremental NPAs coming through from that, and one would really need to see one more quarter there, and if things improve, I don't think there should be a case of worry there.
Right, but these companies are trading at perfect valuations. That's why it's not a very material disappointment. But considering the valuations, the way the stock has done, that's why you're seeing such a reaction.
Right, I think that's fair, because I think companies like Repco or Gru are trading at rich valuations. So clearly, any disappointment will lead to some corrections. That is bound to be there. And the clear risk is that whenever there is a risk in terms of higher NPAs, where we see asset quality getting a bit deteriorated in any NBFCs, there would be a fear. The fear of further deterioration will always be there. And that is a big fear for any of the finance companies. And so naturally, the market will react negatively.
Right, but something like a Repco declaring the way they doesn't really change your call on Diwan Housing, LIC or any other big player.
No, we haven't changed the call. I mean, we haven't changed the call. We have seen the numbers of LIC, we have seen the numbers of DHFL. We have not changed the call on it. Also, on overall affordable housing segment, we think the overall outlook remains pretty positive. Whether it's the government effort to improve that on the ground level, what is happening on the affordable housing would obviously there will be a fair amount of demand coming through. We don't see a slowdown coming through in the affordable housing. In probably the higher end, yes, there is some amount of slowdown possibility or even corrections in terms of prices, but there's nothing of that kind likely to happen in affordable housing. Temporarily, yes, there can be slowdown as we had seen during the demonetization period, but over a period, we think things should pick up there.
Right. Samit, as far as Muthoot Finance is concerned, can you give us some levels? Manappuram did very well after the numbers. Muthoot declared numbers, it's up 2% now.
Clearly, after seeing a strong rally from lower levels in the early part of 2016, the stock is now in a consolidation mode wherein the lower side support would be around 305, 310. This seems to be a very strong support. The stock at this moment clearly lacking momentum. We believe that this is more of a consolidation phase after seeing such a strong rally. So we would expect this stock to consolidate a bit from current level 360, 358 seems to be a very strong resistance, and lower side 310, 320 is acting as a very strong support. So we would expect this range bound action to continue, wherein the range would be slightly broad. 355, 360 would be a resistance. Once this stock surpasses 355, 360 with a good volume activity, then we could see resumption of higher degree uptrend. In that case, the stock can head towards 380, 385 levels.
Right. As far as Sun TV is concerned, Samit, what is your call? After results, it's just taken, it's just slowed down after the results came in over the weekend?
See, a couple of weeks back, we witnessed a strong surge in the stock from the levels of 550, 560. The stock has now reached 700 plus level. So we would expect some consolidation to continue since the stock has already given a strong rally from lower levels. So the stock is now likely to consolidate in a range. The range would be slightly broader in this case, wherein the higher end around 750, 755, and the lower side 700, 680 seems to have very strong support. So rather than giving it a price-wise correction, we expect this stock to give a time-wise correction, which is quite possible considering next at least couple of weeks time, wherein the range, as I mentioned, would be at least 40, 45 points range the stock would oscillate within.
Right. Samit, what would you do with some of the real estate names that have had a good run like HDIL and India Bulls India Bulls Real Estate, these two counters?
Yes, from these space, India Bulls Real Estate has been a preferred pick. If you look at the overall chart structure, the stock has already formed a strong base around 60, 65, and from there, we have already seen a decent recovery. However, in last 3 to 4 weeks, the stock has done nothing. It has been consolidating in a narrow range. So at least in the near term, 84, 85 seems to be a major hurdle. Once the stock manages to surpass this level with decent volumes, then we could see the stock heading toward 95, 96. At this juncture, this stock is clearly in a no trade zone. We would get into the stock once the stock surpasses 84, 85, which is the breakout level. And on the lower side now, immediate support would be seen around 70, 72 levels.
All right. So in the housing space, this is the one that you like. What would you do with some of the pharmaceutical names, Samit? Stocks like Sun Pharma, Aurobindo, and Lupin.
See, honestly, we have not been so active since last couple of months in the pharmaceutical space. If you look at the Sun Pharma, clearly it is in a consolidation mode. However, on the low side, 600, 620 seems to be very strong support, and recently we saw a decent recovery from this level. However, in the near term, 680 seems to be a major hurdle. If this particular stock has to move higher, first it has to surpass 680 with good volumes. In that case, we could see some near-term surge towards 715, 720. However, at this juncture, we expect this consolidation to continue, wherein 680 would act as a very strong resistance, and lower side we are seeing a strong support around 620, 625.
Right. Samit, Shrikant, in terms of metal pack, I know you spoke about Hindalco, but looking at these numbers, whether these numbers are below estimates or slightly above estimates, you think it's still strong free cash flow generation, strong EBITDA growth, which will lead to a lot of capex or debt being paid back, which in turns become positive even if prices of metals were to come off slightly from where they are trading?
Yeah, see, as long as the global trend in metals remain positive, global trend in commodities remain positive in terms of actual commodity prices, I think stocks will continue to perform positively. So we are seeing that happen for, if you look at whether it's steel, whether it's non-ferrous like Hindalco, Nalco, everyone has done well. Iron ore prices are at highs, copper is at highs, aluminium is at highs. So we are seeing metals doing really well in terms of the overall global scenario, and that's when if you look at some of the companies which have high debt, if they are able to repay some of the debt on account of that will be definitely positive. Whether they are able to raise QIPs at high prices, and that helps them.
Last time around, what happened in last year was that Hindalco was in the mix of capex. Tata Steel had huge issues of losses into their UK business, which they had to sell off, or a part of which is already sold off. Vedanta has done a big restructuring, and now their debt is looking comfortable. With the free cash flow generation that these companies have, a lot of those debt would go behind. Until now, we are not in a situation where they would be looking at aggressive expansion. So there's no reason to worry even if a little bit of EBITDA hit comes in.
Right. I don't think there's any plans of aggressive expansion. What we'll see is definitely good cash flow coming through for most of the companies. Specifically for Hindalco, we are seeing definitely good cash flow generation in the current year. It's one of the, after a long period of time, there'll be free cash flow generation for Hindalco coming through. So that's one of the reasons why we turned positive on Hindalco in terms of in one of the metal stocks. If you look at NMDC, where the EBITDA growth is likely to be strong, it does not have debt, it already holds cash, it's already paid off dividends. So even then there will be some substantial upsides in terms of EBITDA and in terms of profitability. So there are different reasons for different companies in terms of numbers. But the broad trend, as long as the broad trend in the commodity sustains, I think there is room for upsides. It's not that just because stocks are rallied by 100% or 50% from the lows does not mean they could the valuations have become rich. So there is room for upsides.
Right. Can you also just talk about Infosys? A lot of noise being made around Infosys, the difference between the board and the founder. Any sort of decline because of that is a buying opportunity because the underlying business remains the same?
On a broad basis, yes, I think we remain positive on Infosys. We have seen structurally things improving for Infosys. The steps they have taken has definitely been played out in terms of growth trajectory, in terms of margins, things have been improving. So all the steps we think will play out positively. Of course, the current the scenario which is playing out is not necessarily good for a stock, any stock. So temporarily there will be volatility on account of that. But as long as the overall underlying business remains pretty strong and does well, I think this will act as opportunities.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on NDTV Profit, giving us your picks for the day. As you go, please give us your disclosures. Samit, what are your disclosures?
See, whatever stocks that we discussed today, I don't have any personal holdings, but our clients might be having positions.
Shrikant, your disclosures?
No personal holdings in any of the stocks which we have discussed on, but our clients could be holding positions in the stocks which we have spoken about.
Thank you so much for being with us on NDTV Profit.